My name is Miriam Aliliana Rosen. On the 14th of April, 2023, as I lay in a delivery room at Beth Israel Medical Center in Manhattan, something happened that would change my life and soul forever. I died. The hours leading up to that moment were a blur of soft hospital lights, whispered prayers, and the sound of my husband David's voice holding back fear behind every word of encouragement. I was giving birth to our first Childa moment we had dreamed of for years. Our little townhouse in Tanafly, New Jersey, was filled with baby clothes, children's books, and hope. We had painted the nursery together, blue and yellow, and every morning I'd place my hand on my belly and whisper, "You're already so loved." I grew up in a traditional Jewish home. Kosher kitchen, Hebrew school every Sunday, Shabbat dinners every Friday evening with candles glowing, and my mother humming prayers. I became a history teacher middle school because I loved helping children find meaning in the past. My life wasn't perfect, but it was whole, full of purpose, full of love. And then, just as I was about to meet the child I had carried for 9 months, everything unraveled. There was a sudden, crushing pain in my chest, unlike anything I had ever felt. I heard the monitor beep wildly. Then the chaos around me began to dissolve. The voices became distant, like they were submerged in water. I remember David shouting my name, but I couldn't respond. I felt myself slipping, and then I let go. I didn't fall. I didn't rise. I floated. I hovered gently above the bed and saw everything. My body, lifeless. The doctors scrambling. The nurses calling for blood. And David's face pale, his eyes wide with helplessness. It should have terrified me, but I felt nothing like fear. What filled me instead was something I never imagined in death: stillness, calm. A deep and gentle silence, as if time had stopped and the universe had drawn in a breath and held it for me. Then something shifted. I felt myself being pulled not up, not down, but through something I can only describe as a veil of light. It wasn't cold or dark. It was soft, warm, sacred, like a curtain made of energy and love being lifted to reveal something just beyond the reach of human senses. And when I emerged on the other side, I was no longer in the hospital. I was standing in a place that was nowhere and everywhere at once. The light around me shimmered, but it didn't hurt my eyes. It felt alive. Every color glowed, every sound echoed like a hymn. And there was a fragrance like something between blooming jasmine and rain on dry earth. It reminded me of Shabbat nights, of my grandmother's arms, of the sound of lullabies. Then I realized I wasn't alone. Someone was there, standing just a few steps in front of me. I felt their presence before I saw their face, and when I did, my heart stopped, or would have if I still had a heart that beat. It was him. Not as I'd seen in paintings or synagogue windows, not the figure with blonde hair and a crown of thorns, but a man with dark eyes, deep and knowing. His face was illuminated not by light from outside, but by something within an eternal stillness, a presence beyond all understanding. His gaze met mine, and in that instant, I felt known. Every thought I'd ever had, every secret, every fear, every fragile hope, he saw all of it, and yet I felt no shame, only love. A love so complete, so personal, that I felt like I might collapse under its weight. "Jesus," I whispered, without even realizing it. He smiled softly, tenderly, like someone welcoming home a long-lost child. "But I'm Jewish," I thought, the words rising inside me before I could say them aloud. "I know who you are, Miriam," he said, as if my very soul had spoken. "I've always known." And in that moment, something shattered inside me, something heavy I hadn't even known I was carrying. The years of religious tension, the fear of being wrong, the ache of wanting answers without betraying tradition, it all fell away, like dust. I stood there in silence, tears rising, but I wasn't crying out of sadness. It was awe. It was home. And then he stepped closer. But I'll tell you what he said, and what he showed me, in the next chapter. If this story is touching your heart, you're already part of something beautiful. Please like this video, subscribe to our channel, and help us grow this loving and open-minded community. Share your name and your city in the comments. We'd be honored to include you in our next prayer. Let's journey together. He stepped closer, not with force, not with grandeur, but with a presence that made the very space around us feel sacred. My spirit didn't flinch. I didn't shrink or hide. Instead, I opened. Something inside me opened, as if all the doors I'd kept locked for years had been quietly unlatched with just one look from him. He didn't need to ask questions. He already knew the answers. His voice wasn't loud. It was soft, like a thought you've always had but never dared to speak aloud. And yet, it carried the weight of the universe. "There is much I want to show you," he said. And then, without moving, we moved. It's impossible to describe in earthly terms. We weren't walking. It was as if thought had become motion. One moment, we stood in that shimmering space. The next, we hovered above Jerusalem. But it was not the Jerusalem I remembered from pictures or stories. It was vivid, alive, full of movement and yet fractured. I saw flames, sirens, missiles cutting through the sky. I saw fear etched into the faces of children, mothers clutching their babies, soldiers shouting in the streets. I felt the weight of their terror in my chest, even though I no longer had lungs to breathe. I turned to him, my voice trembling with sorrow. "Why are you showing me this?" He looked at Menno with judgment, not with anger, but with a sorrow so deep, it felt like it had been carried for centuries. "Because this is what is coming," he said, "but not in the way people expect." Before I could speak, the vision shifted. The destruction faded like mist, and I saw something else entirely. Peace. Real peace. Not political. Not negotiated. People of all faiths embracing. Children playing in the very streets that moments before had been torn by war. I saw synagogues, mosques, and churches standing side by side, somehow untouched by division. And then, I heard it. Laughter. Not cynical or forced, but pure. Joyful, holy. I looked at Jesus, my heart wide open. "How?" He answered without hesitation. "Because love will do what tradition could not." He showed me more. Faces. Thousands of them. Jewish, Christian, Muslim. Men and women who, in dreams or moments of stillness, began to hear his namano as a weapon, but as a whisper of peace. I saw rabbis waking in the night with tears on their cheeks. Israeli soldiers standing still under the stars, overcome with visions they could not explain. Young Arab women clutching a Bible they'd hidden beneath their bed for years. Teenagers doubting, resisting, then surrendering to something they couldn't deny. "The veil is lifting," he said, slowly, painfully, but surely. I began to weep, not for sadness, but for beauty, for possibility. "But won't this cause chaos?" I asked, thinking of all the arguments, the fears, the centuries of division. "Won't people fight back?" He looked into my eyes, calm and unwavering. "New life always begins with pain. What matters is what comes next." And then, he touched my hand. I expected fire, or trembling, but what I felt was warmth, deep, soul-deep warmth, like sunlight on skin after a long winter. It flooded every part of me, every memory of failure, every voice of shame. Every moment I had ever believed I was not enough, burned away by one touch. "Miriam," he said gently, "you've been chosen to witness this and to tell others." I stepped back, shaken. "But I'm just a teacher. I'm no prophet. I'm no one." He placed his hand over my heart. "You are mine," he said, "and that is all that matters." The moment he spoke those words, something changed inside me. A quiet courage. A light I didn't know I had. I still didn't feel worthy, but I knew, with certainty, that I had been seen, that I had been known, that I had been called. And then he showed me my daughter. I hadn't even held her yet. But there she was, crying in the arms of a nurse. David nearby, eyes wet, torn between grief and awe. I felt my soul reach toward her, aching with love. A mother's love, reborn in a place without time. I didn't want to leave. I didn't want to lose this place, this presence, but something told me I would. And something else was coming. The light around us shifted again, and I felt myself being pulled not forcefully, but with intention into another place, another layer of vision. This time, it wasn't chaos or peace. It was something deeper, something that reached into the core of the human spirit and shook it gently awake. We were now standing, if one could call it that, in what looked like a circle of leaders. Rabbis, priests, pastors, imams, each dressed in their own garments of tradition, sitting not as opponents, but as equals. There was no shouting, no debating, only listening, only understanding. I looked at Jesus, unsure of what I was witnessing. "This is coming," he said, "not because humans will make it happen, but because hearts are being softened." He stepped into the center of them, not seen by them, not yet, but fully present. "The walls between religions will begin to crumble," he said, "not through violence or arguments, but through love, through the realization that I was never meant to be owned, only known." His words echoed inside me. For years I had seen religion as a structure, a system of do's and don'ts. But now I was seeing it through his eyes as something meant to guide us toward love, not away from it. Then came something I could never have expected. He showed me the Temple Mount in Jerusalem. But it wasn't the Temple Mount as it is now, divided and fiercely guarded. I saw it reborn still, standing in the center of the holy city, but transformed. A new temple had risen not of stone and sacrifice, but of openness and light. It shimmered like glass, yet stood firm like mountains. People of all backgrounds walked in and out, Jewish, Christian, Muslim, people who had no labels at all praying side by side, hands lifted in reverence, not rivalry. "This," he said, "will be the third temple." I could hardly believe it. "But how?" I whispered. "With all the conflict? With the dome? With the history?" "There will be a solution no one has thought of yet," he said, looking toward the horizon. "It will not be man's doing. It will be mine." The certainty in his voice silenced every doubt in my heart. It wasn't a dream. It wasn't symbolism. I knew somehow I had seen the future. Then, the vision changed again. I saw the earth trembling not, metaphorically, but literally. Earthquakes, fires, floods, nations thrown into political confusion, cities rising and others collapsing into ruin. But amid the turmoil, I saw hands reaching for one another, scientists working beside clergy, youth caring for elders, families opening homes to strangers. And from a place that seemed to radiate light, I saw something being born. From Israel, I saw streams of innovation, new technologies that purified water, healed diseases, and restored the land. From Jerusalem, I saw discoveries, ancient scrolls, lost knowledge, things that shook the foundations of every Abrahamic faith, not to destroy them, but to wake them up. "The world is entering birth pains," Jesus said. "What seems like destruction is actually preparation." I looked into his eyes, trembling. "When?" "Some of it has already begun," he said. "But by 2030, nothing will be the same." I took a breather, something like a breath. My spirit was overwhelmed. Then his tone changed. Still loving, but with a gravity that demanded attention. "There is something you must warn them about," he said. I listened. "The greatest danger to humanity," he continued, "is not war or hunger or even death. It is spiritual blindness. People think they are serving God when they are serving fear. They wrap my name in pride, in power, in politics, and then wonder why they cannot feel me." The words hit me like lightning. I felt them course through my soul. He wasn't angry. He was heartbroken. "They don't need to be perfect to come to me," he said. "They only need to be willing." Then he showed me something so tender, so profound, I could hardly contain the emotion. He showed me faces. Dozens of them. Ordinary people, a young rabbi in Tel Aviv, a Christian woman in Alabama, a Muslim student in France, a girl in Sao Paulo who called herself an atheist but wept when she heard his name. These are the ones who will hear your voice, he said. Not because you're special, but because you're willing. And their hearts, though wounded, dare still open. He showed me a web of connection, like threads of light spanning across nations. I saw my own story reaching places I'd never been. I saw people waking up not to a religion, but to him. This isn't about proving who's right, he said. It's about waking up hearts. And just as the words settled into my soul, I felt it again. A shift, a pulling. Something was changing. I didn't feel my feet move. There was no turning around, no door opening or closing. And yet, I knew it was time. The light that had surrounded me, protected me, and healed me began to shift. Not dim, not vanish, but pull back, as though releasing me. Not because I was being cast out, but because I had been entrusted. Something inside me whispered that the moment of return had come, and my heart, now heavy with vision and full of divine peace, was trembling again. But I don't want to leave, I said, my voice quiet, barely formed. Jesus looked at me with eyes that held eternity. Heaven is your home, he said gently, but your mission isn't finished. And with that, the world changed around me. The shimmering veil returned, and this time, it pulled me through with speed. The warmth gave way to cold. The silence gave way to noise. The stillness shattered into chaos. I gasped. It was the sound of machines, shouting, crying, life. "She's back!" a voice screamed. "We've got a pulse!" My chest ached as air rushed into my lungs. My body, weak and trembling, felt like an anchor I hadn't worn in centuries. Eyes opened, tears spilled, and then I felt her, warm and small, pressed against my chest. My daughter, my Eden. They placed her in my arms, and something sacred passed between us. She had been crying, but the moment our skin met, she stopped, as if something in her recognized something in me. As if heaven had left its fingerprint on both of us. David was sobbing, holding my hand, kissing my forehead. "You're here," he whispered. "You're really here." I later learned I had been gone for 9 minutes. No heartbeat, no brain activity. The doctors called it a miracle. But to me, it wasn't just a miracle. It was a commission. In the days that followed, I couldn't sleep. Not because of exhaustion or fear, but because my spirit was still vibrating from everything I had seen. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the third temple. I heard the voices of people waking up in every corner of the world. I remembered the pain of the earth hand, the promise that it was only the beginning. And most of all, I remembered his voice. "You've been chosen to witness this and to tell others." So I began to write, quietly at first, in my journal. Then, emails to friends, voice notes to family. I thought maybe I'd be dismissed, called emotional, confused, maybe even unstable. But something strange began to happen. People listened. They wept. They asked questions. They told me that something in their spirit stirred as they heard my story, that it didn't sound like religion. It sounded like truth, like something ancient they had forgotten, now gently rising from within them. Strangers messaged me from places I had never been. "I don't know why I found your words today," one woman wrote, "but I haven't stopped crying. I felt something I've never felt before." Another said, "I had a dream of a man in light a year ago. I never told anyone, until I read your story. And I knew this wasn't mine to keep. This was for every soul searching for more, for every person who had been told that love was earned, when in truth, it had been freely given all along." Even now, as I tell you this, my hands are trembling, not from fear, from reverence, because I know what I saw, and I know what I was asked to do, not to preach, not to convert, but to remind, to whisper to hearts that have grown tired, that heaven is near, that love is real, that the time is coming, and is already here, when the veil is thinning, and the call is going out. Not to religions, but to souls. To you. If these words touched your heart, please like this video and comment Amen to open yourself to divine blessings. Let us know in the comments which city you're watching from so we can send blessings your way in our prayers. This is more than just a story. This is a living testimony, and you are now part of it.